Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have our security talk, or the CERIAS seminar talk. We have with us Roger Grimes, and he's from Know Before. Roger holds many titles and certifications, including CPA, CISSP, CEH, MCSE, and so on. He has published 14 books and over 1,400 articles on computer security, and he also had positions in popular or reputed companies like Foundstone, McAfee, and Microsoft. So, Roger, whenever you are ready.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. I'm here to talk about the many ways to hack MFA. And the reason why I created this is that I would meet many people that had multi-factor authentication and somehow felt that they were less likely to be hacked. And it is true. If you use MFA, almost any MFA will stop 40 to 60% of attacks, which is a big deal. It's the number one biggest thing you can do besides training people not to be socially engineered to decrease attacks. But it doesn't mean you can't be attacked. Still leaves at least 40% of the attacks. And if I, as an attacker, know what MFA your organization uses, most of it is as trivial to bypass as if you had a password, and sometimes easier. So that's what this talk is about, the many ways to hack MFA. Again, Roger Grimes, been doing this 36 years now, earned all of these gray hairs, written a bunch of books. One of them is called Hacking Multi-Factor Authentication, where a lot of these talks come from. Of course, in the next 45 minutes, I'm not going to be able to cover everything in the book, but I am going to give you probably the most exciting one so you don't have to buy the book. I work for Know Before. We're the world's largest security awareness training and simulated phishing platform vendor. Means we try to help people not to be phished. And that's important because that is how most people get hacked, is through phishing. And many of the attacks I show you are some sort of social engineering, but I'll show you a little bit of everything today. So how to hack MFA, and then lessons and recommendations. And actually, I give you the final recommendation I have, which is people should be using phishing-resistant MFA whenever they can to protect valuable data and systems. Most MFA is very phishable. 95% of it is easy to phish as getting past your password. But if you have a choice, many times you don't have a choice. Your company's like, you're using this. Your bank says you're using this. But if you have a choice, you should try to use phishing-resistant MFA, because the other stuff is just horrible. Really horrible at times. But I like MFA. It's just that its protective value is oversold to many, many people. But anything can be hacked. Any MFA solution can be hacked many different ways. I can hack any MFA solution at least 11, 12 ways, most of them, even the most secure, 5 different ways. Even the stuff that I love the best, that I think is the most secure, the stuff that you should be using can be hacked, right? Anything can be hacked, but some solutions are more resilient than others. So I'm going to try to tell you about the difference between the easy to hack stuff and the stuff that's not so easy to hack today. But we should strive to use phishing-resistant MFA whenever we can, but just not all MFA is hackable. So we're going to start with the most common type of attack. The first time I wrote about this attack was in 1999 when I was the weekly InfoWorld security columnist. It's been around it's been around forever. Since computers and MFA, when the first MFA solution was created back in the 1980s. But I first wrote about it in 1999 as a historical attack. It's been known by many different names. It was used to be called session hijacking or network session hijacking or something like that. Adversary in the middle attack is what Microsoft calls it. Most of us called it man in the middle attack forever. But this is an attack that has been done millions and millions of times. It has allowed people to steal money from millions and millions of people. It is still being used today to steal millions and millions of people's money. Matter of fact, Microsoft said that they detect 36 or is it 39,000 successful of these attacks every single day. It's done a lot. But the way that it works is that a phishing hacker creates a phishing email with a rogue link in it and sends an email to somebody they know that uses either a password or, in this case, some sort of MFA solution. And that message is inducing them to use that MFA solution to log on in. It's telling them that they have to log into their organization website to pick up an email, to change some record. Somehow they're trying to create an emotional response and have this person quickly click on that link where they're taken to what looks like the real page they're used to seeing. But if they were to slow down and hover over the link before they click it, they would see that it's a rogue URL, and it is not taking them to where they think they're going. Instead, it's taking them to a man-in-the-middle web server. Sometimes it's known as a man-in-the-middle rogue transparent proxy website. That's a lot of technical ease for just saying some other guy's computer. So it takes them to the hacker's computer, and that hacker computer then proxies them to the real website or service they thought they were going to. So now everything that site has, they're going to see. But now you have the hacker computer in the middle, and this works even with HTTPS and TLS and all this other stuff. But now they're going to see everything they're expecting to see, and anything the website sends to them, like from the website, like their credit card or whatever, and more importantly, anything the hacker sends to the website, like their login name, their password, their MFA code, their fingerprint, their facial scan, whatever they are asked to input to the site to log on in, the hacker's also getting. What they really are many times trying to get is what's known as the session token cookie. Whenever you successfully log on in to a website or service on the web, it's usually going to send back to your browser what's known as a cookie, which is just a text file that has a randomly generated session ID that represents you. And it's kind of, we call it like a bearer token, which means if you have that file, your computer, your browser, that website thinks that computer or browser is you. So all the hacker has to do is copy that cookie, disconnect your session, then they use that cookie, inject it into their browser session, refresh, and they become you in a login session. They then change your password, maybe enable MFA if you didn't have it enabled before, change your telephone number, and then do whatever devious thing they're going to do. And this has been done millions and millions of times. Microsoft says, again, successfully 36 or 39,000 times a day just to Microsoft Office 365 customers. It's very common. The time that I wrote about it, or the last major time I wrote about it, was a couple years ago when my coworker Kevin Mitnick, he was the world's most infamous hacker for a while until unfortunately he passed away last July. But he showed this demo to the world, and it's a really good demo, so I still use it. And he's using LinkedIn. And a lot of people said, oh, you're going to tell Microsoft to fix this? There is no fixing it. This is somebody doing something as is the way the MFA works, and there is no fixing to it for the most part, although they're still trying to come up and trying to defeat it. But it's been around for decades. It's probably going to be around for decades. But we are starting to come up with some solutions. But if you want to see, I'm going to show you a 2-minute video of it. If you want to see the longer 8-minute video, you can go to this link here. Anybody can download this session. You can email me. I'll send you my deck, and I'm going to give it to people here at Purdue University. But just know you can watch a longer version. But let me show you how easy it is to be done. So here we are on an inbox, a regular looking inbox, and one of those emails has a phishing email. Kevin's going to click on it. It looks like just a normal email from somebody saying, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn. But this is a phishing email, and if the victim was looking at the URL, they'd see that it's LLinked.com, not LinkedIn.com. But a lot of people would miss that, think it was from LinkedIn, and then clicked on the button. When they clicked on the button, if they didn't realize it was taken them to the wrong place, if you look up in the top hand side there, it's LLinked, not LinkedIn. But really what this is a man-in-the-middle website that's capturing when the victim types in their login name and password. And even LinkedIn is going to prompt the victim to input their MFA credentials after they put in their login name and password. But really what the victim is connected to is a man-in-the-middle website that is capturing all that information, the login name, the password, and the multi-factor authentication code that they type on in here. So the person gets sent the code, they type it in, they think they're putting it to the real website, but really it's a fake website that's capturing it. And if you look behind the scenes there, the hacker, using their hacking tool behind the scenes, has captured the login name and password. The victim is actually in on the real website right now. It has passed them through to the real website. But this is what the hacker captures. You can see email address, password, and what's called the access control token cookie. They could have, if they wanted to, captured that 4 or 6-digit code that they typed on in, but they really, in this particular case, don't even need it because they have the website's cookie. Every time someone logs in successfully, whether it includes MFA or not, the website will send back a cookie that basically says, hey, you've been approved, you authenticated. The hacker can capture that and then paste it into their browser. So here is an example. Kevin is going into his browser, going to the LinkedIn real website. He's not even going to try to log in as the user with their login name and password. He's simply going to inject the stolen cookie into his browser session. He's doing it right here. He's going to open up the admin console, the developer console, copy that stolen cookie into his browser and simply refresh his browser, and he would be logged in as the victim. And there is the attacker on the real website and as the victim. And this sort of attack would work against probably 90-95% of multi-factor authentication today. And people say, how about biometrics? Yes, you can pass along your face and your fingerprint as easily as you can. It doesn't care how you authenticate it to the site. It only cares that you authenticate it successfully, and it steals your cookie. So today, anywhere else, anytime you hear that I want you to use phishing resistant MFA, this is what I mean. That is not susceptible to the man-in-the-middle attack. There's all kinds of other ways I can phish and that sort of stuff. I can phish anything in a bunch of different ways. But when I say phishing resistant, this is what I mean, because it is the most popular attack against MFA today. There's nothing else even close to it. The rest of the stuff, this is done tens of thousands of times a day, possibly 100,000 times a day if you include all services, and all the rest of the attacks can maybe be 1,000, maybe up to 10,000 or something like that. This is the primary attack, and if you use an MFA solution, you should try to, if you get the chance to use one that is not susceptible to man-in-the-middle attacks. Kevin in this demo used a tool called Evil Jinx. There's hundreds of tools on the internet that allow you to intercept cookies and do this sort of thing. Evil Jinx has been around for almost 2 decades. It's the easiest tool out there, and if you want to hack your way and do something like this, I suggest you look at Evil Jinx. But there's a lot of tools to do the same thing. It's been done for just tons of years. Here's an article with someone complaining about how they had their cryptocurrency stolen. What had happened is they had sent a phishing email that claimed it looked like it was going to take them to Binance. Binance is the world's largest cryptocurrency website, even ahead of Coinbase if you use that. And he got a fake email, got tricked into clicking on it, and he had Google Authenticator, put in a 6-digit code, but after he put that in, they took and stole his access, robbed him blind. And there's a lot of people all over the web complaining about how they were using MFA that their cryptocurrency vendor told them to use, and they still got robbed blind. Happens literally hundreds and hundreds of times a day. Here's somebody, this is Microsoft Defender. Microsoft, you'll hear Microsoft say, MFA stops 99% of attacks. It does not. It is not. They are lying. It doesn't even come close to stopping 99%. So it doesn't even stop 99% of phishing attacks. It stops a lot. It just doesn't stop 99%. But here they are even talking about how cookie theft allows people to get around adversary in the middle phishing sites for further financial fraud. It says here, they hijack the user's session, skipping the authentication process, even if the user had enabled MFA, and it's been used against tens of thousands of organizations, that sort of stuff. You don't even have to be like an Uber hacker, use Evil Jinx to pull it off. The phishing kits, these days most phishing is done by people that buy $200 and $300 phishing kits, which are this all-in-one packages that will infiltrate the websites, create fake websites, do the man-in-the-middle attack, steal your credentials, steal your MFA. For $200 or $300 a month is what they pay for these phishing kits. Most of the phishing kits now include stealing the MFA. They have to kind of be built for different types of multi-factor authentication solutions. They, of course, support all the popular ones, Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, Duo, and push authentication, SMS-based, and all that sort of stuff, and have for years. It's nothing new, done all the time. Completely different type of attack, which is kind of the opposite of man-in-the-middle attack. This is an endpoint attack. This is to say that if a hacker or their malware creation gets on your device, your MFA is not going to help you, because at the very least, they can just pretend to be you, wait for you not to be on the device, but it is your device, and they can start to do keystrokes and things like you could otherwise do. Or they can just wait for you to log in and then take control of that website using a hidden browser session, as one example. This is the first time I wrote about Bankos Trojans, was like 1992, I think, the first time I saw this attack. And they were called Bankos Trojans because they were used a lot against Brazilian and Portuguese banks at the time. But what happens in this case is that someone gets compromised by malware on their device, and then it kind of goes to sleep. And the only thing it does is monitor where you're going on the web, and then when you go to one of the 200 or 300 places that it's looking for, it waits for you to log on in, and then it starts a second hidden browser session. Most of the popular operating systems allow people to start hidden sessions, second sessions that the user knows nothing about. You've just authenticated, and then you think, oh, I'm checking my bank balance, I'm going to send some money to my daughter or something like that, but it's really robbing you blind. And the bank doesn't know that it's not you because you just successfully logged in, maybe using your MFA. It's coming from your device, your IP address, using a browser, and you just logged on in. They don't know that it's not you. These have been around for decades. They steal lots and lots of money. Here's an example of just one gang called the Ghazni gang. They stole $100 million from 41,000 victims with the help of a stealthy banking Trojan. It was 11 people. 11 people stole $100 million. There are thousands of these gangs actively in the world today. Thousands of them. Every day, if they're not stealing $1 million to $100 million a day, they're not even on any law enforcement's radar to do anything about. They're not even, law enforcement's not even looking at them unless they happen to, hack into the wrong account, like Bill Gates or Musk or something. Then you get arrested really quickly. But it's really, really common. Here's a really common type of malware on mobile phones called EventBot. It also has the ability to steal your SMS messages, which is the most common type of MFA to bypass two-factor authentication. And it targeted banks and investment accounts and like Fidelity and Robinhood and all that sort of stuff. And it's been around forever. Again, it just looks for you to go somewhere and then takes your money. Also, here's one. I don't have time to show you this video, but it's a good link. But this is an app that it faked being an Android app that would help you look at and optimize your bank battery power. I think all of us have been to that point where our phones aren't keeping the battery power so great. So this was actually in the official app stores in both Apple and Android, where you could download this or this battery optimization app. All it was a banking Trojan, as we call it. But it would just wait for you to go to PayPal. So, because a lot of people use PayPal, and when you went to PayPal, all of a sudden it would wake up and you'd see your screen doing it. And if you slowed it down, you could see what it was doing, but it was just a macro, and it was just stealing money, transferring all your money to their bank account very quickly. And you're like, what happened? And by the time you're trying to realize they've got their money, moved it to another bank. And again, there's tons of these apps. The app stores do a really good job of getting rid of them when they've found things like this, but they've compromised hundreds of thousands of victims before they get reported enough that they get taken down and removed. Certainly, any SMS tied to your phone number should not be used. As a matter of fact, the US government has said that you should not use any multi-factor authentication tied to your telephone number since 2016. Does anybody here think the US government is on the cutting edge of cybersecurity? Probably not, but they've probably seen some things. They probably have to see it a lot before they recommend it. But let me say the US government has said not to use MFA tied to your telephone number since 2016. 2017 officially. 2016 was the draft. 2017 became their official recommendation in what's called the Digital Identity Guidelines, in this special publication, 800-63-3. They're coming out with a new version. Should be in this month or next month. But anyways, they've been saying not to use phone number-based SMS for a long, long time, going on almost a decade now. What is the most popular type of SMS in the world? Phone number-based SMS. Even my bank uses it. Even government sites have been told not to use it, use it. And there's a lot of different ways to steal your MFA. One of the most popular ways, though, involves literally either intercepting the code that is sent to you. And we all are used to being sent regular SMS messages, right? These are legitimate SMS messages I was sent by Microsoft and Facebook and Bank of America and Marriott and stuff like that. Even funny enough, your ID experts, my ID care, was sent to me because my security clearance was compromised in the U.S. The Chinese stole all my fingerprints in the U.S. government, along with 15 million other people in 2015, called the opium attack of 2015. But they decided they were going to monitor my credit to make sure my credit wasn't going crazy. And what do they use from the government website that's supposed to protect me against identity theft? SMS-based authentication, which is supposed to be outlawed in the U.S. government, but it's what they use. But one of the most popular ways is called SIM swapping, a SIM swapping attack. SIM stands for Subscriber Identity Module. Most phones today have your subscriber information either on a little memory card, micro SD card that's in your phone. You have to remember to go get if you want to get that card out, you got to get a paper clip and hope you don't crush your speaker instead, and you pop that out. Sometimes on iPhones and stuff, it's a virtual area of memory, but it contains things that identify you to the phone and to your network. It's how you connect to AT&T, or you'd connect to Verizon or whatever in there, but it makes your phone, and if that information gets transferred to another phone, your phone stops working, and the other phone will start to answer to your phone number. So any MFA that goes to a phone number, all SMS goes to your phone number, will be transferred to the attacker's phone, and they've been doing that for a long, long time. They will either, a lot of times they'll phish you, send you a phishing email, or they'll call you, they'll claim to be from your phone company, and they'll ask you enough information so they can then pretend to be you at your telephone company and get it. They'll say, oh, I got a new phone, and you need to transfer your phone's like, oh, hit star 627, and they do it. They also bribe people in the phone company. Many phone people, tech support people have been compromised, and it's funny, these attacks are used to steal oftentimes millions of dollars, and the Verizon phone store employee was given like 50 or 75 bucks as part of that. I have a friend that works at Verizon Wireless, and he said if he goes out on the weekends in a shirt, people come up and offer him bribes to do these SIM swap transfers. But what happens when your phone gets transferred to the other phone is your phone doesn't go not working. It just doesn't ring anymore. You don't get any more messages. At some point after a couple hours, you're probably going to realize that your phone's not working, and it's really the only indication you have that's not working is it says out of network. And then you're like, what's going on? You just say, oh, I'm in a bad place. I'm in a basement or something. Let me move to somewhere better. You find somewhere it's not working. Eventually, you got to borrow somebody else's phone. You call your telephone company hours later, and you go, hey, my phone's not working. Like, of course, because you had to transfer to your new phone. And that's your first indication that maybe a SIM swap attack is going on. I didn't get a new phone. I didn't call. Most people I know, it takes them a day or longer to actually get control of their account again. But during that time, that person is then going to your bank account, your stock account, whatever, resetting it, saying they need a password reset, and then they're being sent the SMS code. It's sent to their phone. Instead, they use it to steal money, or like Reddit. Poor Reddit. I love Reddit. But it's been like hacked a couple of times. And one of the ways they were at first used admin, they used SMS-based MFA for their administrators. That didn't work out well because the SIM swap attack took them down. SIM swap attacks took down Twitter, Facebook, all kinds of the most popular companies out there. And it turns out that you really don't have to be an uber hack or even social engineer that much. You can actually create an official looking letter and 16 bucks, go to 200 different places on the internet and ask for anybody's phone number to be switched to your phone. 16 bucks. This is well known. It's been described on the internet for well over a decade by Brian Krebs. It's been on 60 Minutes. These companies know that people can get your phone number transferred to them. They don't change it. They don't stop it. Why? Because it's 16 bucks. They're making 16 bucks. You make it harder, they don't get their 16 bucks. So you can go to lots of places and transfer anybody's phone number. You shouldn't do it, it's illegal, but if you live in Russia or China or something, you don't care so much that it's legal, right? In America, you could actually be arrested, go to jail, it's a felony. I wouldn't play with it. But really, you don't even have to get anybody's phone number transferred. You can just pretend to be anybody, because SMS and a phone call, anybody can call you, anyone can send you a message, claim to be anybody. I can send you a message, claim to be Bill Gates, or if I know you have a Gmail account, I can just claim to be Google Security. Hi, we're Google Security. We've noticed a rogue sign-in to your account. We're not sure if you or the other person's the real person, so we're going to send you a confirmation code. Please respond with the confirmation code sent in the other thread to this number, or we will permanently lock out your account. Got to threaten them, right? Oh my God, I'm going to lose my whole life on there. And then the hacker just goes to Gmail, puts in your email address, tells Gmail that they lost your password. They didn't lose it, they didn't know it, but puts them in account recovery mode. They're offered 4 different ways to recover the account, and one of the ways is SMS. And you cannot stop this. There is no way to tell Google, I don't want to allow SMS reset to be used. It literally is 4 options. Anybody can use it. And so they go in there and say, send in the code to my SMS. The victim gets sent the code they were told to expect. Boom. If they reply to that person's code, it's game over. And let me say, I have friends. I worked for Know before we try to social engineer people. I've had many people tell me, you can't socially engineer me. There might be people in this room thinking, you can't get me. I have socially engineered everybody that has ever told me that I can't socially engineer them, usually quite easily. I'll tell you one of the ways that I use here that works quite well is I get their name. I know kind of where they live because I'm visiting them somewhere, and I find out where they live. I find out what county they live in, and then I'll send them a text message claiming to be from their local water or sewage company. So, you're in Pinellas County, and I see Pinellas County is called Pinellas Sewage and Water or whatever. I find out the name, I find out the address, and go, hey, there's been we apologize. This is from Pinellas County and Sewage. There's been a large water main break near your primary place of residence, and I'll put the address in there. We apologize for the inconvenience, but please don't drink water until further notice. If you're going to use water, make sure that you boil it. Would you like to be proactively notified when it's safe to drink your water? Who doesn't want to be told when they can drink their water again? Well, that's cool. As soon as they say yes, you know you have them. I always get them. This has never not worked to anyone that I've sent it to, and I've got lots of different funny ones like this. They say, thank you. Well, we're going to send you a code to confirm your subscription. And then you do the same thing. You go to their stock account, bank account, whatever, send them a code, they respond to it, it's game over. Thank you so much. You're now enrolled in our early warning system or whatever. Depends what's going on. Oh, hurricanes. You're in the middle of a hurricane or something. I'm from Tampa, Florida. We had 2 in a week and a half. That was something. Oh, would you like early notification about where the flooding damage is going to be? If it's going to be near your primary place of residence, be glad to help you. Just reply with this confirmation code. Or I can do it from a bank. I can call you. I had somebody call me once, go, hi, Mr. Grimes, this is a Fidelity Bank or whatever. Did you buy 2 tickets from Dallas, Texas to Nigeria this morning? From Dallas, from DWF? I was like, no. And they went, oh, we think your account's been hacked. We apologize. You and your wife are a valued customer of ours, and we're going to Fed Express you new cards overnight. We apologize. But we see there's $55,000 of transactions on the account, and we need to verify which ones we should pay on your behalf that you would like us to pay and which ones are not yours. I'm thinking, man, this is great. Thank God they caught this. At the same time, I'm starting to log on in, and they were like, what's your name? I told them Roger Grimes. What's your password? I said, no, I don't feel good about giving my password. Saying, Mr. Grimes, you're doing the right thing. We're going to send you a confirmation code. We just need you to confirm and tell us the numbers, and bloop, on my phone came a confirmation code about the same time as I was logging into the account. And I said, oh, I'm logging in. And they were like, no, don't log in, Mr. Grimes, that'll cause problems. And I went into my account. There were no hacking. There was no $55,000 of transactions. But if I would have told them that code, there would have been $55,000 of transactions. So say after me, you cannot trust anybody that calls you or texts you, especially in the days of AI and stuff like that. And by the way, I can make you, all I need is 6 seconds of your voice, picture of you to make you say anything. Literally, it will take me longer to sign up for the free account that I use on the AI service on the internet than it does to make a fake you say anything. I do it all the time. It's very easy. You cannot trust people who call you or who text you. And sometimes you do everything perfect, it's not your fault, and they just tech support. They just social engineer tech support. They like calling telephone companies and other places where your MFA is kind of stored to your cell phone and then use it to socially engineer you. There's once a cybersecurity guy, acquaintance of mine, that got hacked so much, he did what Brian Krebs, who's another great, awesome security guy, said, make sure you get a lock, get a PIN on your cell phone, so if they're going to transfer your cell phone number, they got to know the PIN. That's great advice. It really is good advice. Easy to get around, but great advice. It's just one other thing we got to socially engineer around. But he went to a hacker conference, it was Black Hat, and said he went to a known social engineer and said, I want to see if you can get my cell phone information transferred to your phone now that I put a lock on it. She did it in about 5 minutes. She called up his cell phone company, said that she was his wife. She had downloaded the audio sound of crying twins twice. And you can go to this link, and I don't have time to show it to you, but she just downloaded these babies crying, and she's on the phone with tech support saying that she's his wife, and she's like, I got to get these phones moved. We're moving. I've got to, change it. Honey, I'm doing it. Honey, I'm doing it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to feed my babies. My babies are sick. Who doesn't want to help a sick mother with sick, hungry babies with a mean-ass husband? Everybody wants to help that person. The person then said, do you know his login name? She didn't. The person told her what it was, asked her, did you know what the password was? She took a couple of guesses at the password, wrong, and they went, oh, do you think it's Jupiter? And the hacker said, oh, that's what he used to use years ago. She goes, well, he's still using it, and he should update it. She goes, well, can I give it to you? She said, yeah, was able to give a new password, was able to take over the account, get it changed to the new address. And she goes, and my daughter just went to college, and we'd like to buy her a new iPhone. Can I get an iPhone shipped to her at another location and have that charged to my account? Yes, no problem. Took 5 minutes. Why? Because we want to help people. We're human. We're not AI. AI wouldn't do it, but humans would do it. Duplicate code generators. A lot of MFA today, a lot of it, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, Duo, they do what's known as one-time passwords, and it's these 6-digit codes that change every minute or so. First MFA I ever saw was RSA Secure ID. It did the same thing. Actually did it far more securely. And today, it doesn't do it as securely because people want to make it work and have it work easy and fast. But these one-time codes kind of tell you this is a one-time code. Nobody can guess it. Nobody can predict it. It's never going to be around again. You get it this time, and it never show up again. It's going to keep you from being hacked or whatever. And that works until someone gets your secret, what's called seed value. All of these work by taking something of you, some information about you, your name, your email address, like Google Authenticator, you use your email address, then it generates a one-time random seed value, and then it has to store that information somewhere. That information has to be stored on the device or instance where you're actually using the one-time password code, and has to be stored in the authentication database on that service or some service that services that service But anyways, there is a database in at least 2 places that has your information and the seed value. And if a hacker is able to get that, they usually know or can look up the algorithm that's used by that MFA solution to generate the one-time code, because it's generating that one-time code usually based upon the current time in what's called Unix time. First time I used this type of hack was back in 1991 using a program called Can Enable in Windows XP. But I was able to compromise a vendor's RSA Secure ID database, got their seed values, put it into this old program from decades ago, and was able to generate new virtual instances of the RSA Secure ID. Been around forever, can be used against any of the one-time password values in there. And this was actually used, RSA, it turned out RSA was backing up everybody else's seed values on a backup server that they did not really secure well. Chinese broke into there, stole everybody in the world that had ever had an RSA Secure ID's token seed value. And they then generated virtual instances and robbed a lot of companies, including Lockheed Martin. They broke into Lockheed Martin, and they took information, including plans for our new F-22. And it turns out the Chinese F-22 looks a lot like our F-22. Some of their documentation looks just like our documentation, including the same typos. It is just in Mandarin, but it looks a lot the same. But it was funny. RSA to this day tried to claim it never happened. I work at Microsoft. I worked on this case. It did happen. I know exactly how it happened. So it's been around. But a lot of times Google will send you a, like a QR code, quick response code is your seed value, which is great. Like, oh my God, it makes it so much more secure. All that is letters and numbers or links, right, and a barcode. Oh my God, who could ever read that? Anybody with a phone can read that. But they send that information to you, and they tell you you're supposed to delete that. Most of the time, people don't do that. But if an attacker can get a hold of that, they will then be able to create additional instances of your Google Authenticator. Many people do not delete that. A lot of people take pictures of it in case they have to get a new phone or something. They save it or they don't delete it out of their delete items box. Hackers look for these codes, find them, and then use them against people. And I say it's only a problem if you not only would they have to know your secret value in your email address, but they'd have to know the Google algorithm. Guess what? It's a public algorithm. Google Authenticator was taken from a public open source project, and it's still out there. You can still download Pharaoh, and it will allow you to create virtual instances of other people's Google Authenticator instances if you can find that seed value. But again, hackers frequently look for these seed values. Here's a guy complaining years ago that, hey, mystery solved. I know how they did it. I know you're going to think I'm stupid, but I didn't delete my QR code. The hacker found it, took over my instance, robbed me blind of cryptocurrency. Poor cryptocurrency people. They're like on the cutting edge of being robbed and blind all the time. So, the moral of the story, first of all, is not to use phishable MFA. This is phishable MFA because you're putting in a code that somebody could otherwise take. But number two, if you do get one of these types of seed value codes, don't keep them forever. It's not a good thing. Hackers literally look for them all the time. This to me is one of the funnier ones that I see sometimes, which is you're using MFA because you want to protect your account. So you're using non-phishable, phishing-resistant MFA. Thank God you're doing the right thing. But every major site has, oh, your MFA is not working? How else would you like to log on in? And those methods are all less secure than the MFA that you're using, which means you're the only one using secure MFA. The hacker doesn't. It's really nice that they offer up many less secure options for you to recover it. Most of the time, it is just sending some type of code to your email address or something like that. That's really, really common. The ones that kill me, though, are these personal knowledge reset questions, like what's your mother's maiden name and stuff. These are insane. They should be outlawed. They've always been a horrible idea. But, like who could ever guess my mother's maiden name? I don't know anybody with a browser. Or they're like, what's your favorite car? Well, I can never guess what your password is, but I can, within probably 10 or 15, 20 guesses, guess your favorite car because there's only 100 car models on Earth. They don't change that much over time. And your favorite car is probably something closer to a Lamborghini or a Lexus or something, or maybe an F-150 or a Mustang. Probably not a Ford Escort or a Pacer. And that's not the dog that's a Pacer. That's the best round car GMC ever made. But it's easy, where were you born? What was your school mascot? Let me tell you, Google did a research paper years ago called Secrets, Lies, and Account Recovery Lessons Used from the Personal Knowledge Questions at Google. And I love some of the stats here. First of all, some recovery questions can be guessed on the first try 20% of the time. So 1 out of 5 questions can be guessed on the first try. by a hacker. That's amazing. And I love this. 40% of people are unable to successfully recall their own recovery answers. What does that mean? I think it means you should call a hacker because apparently they have half the options you do. They can guess into it. But yeah, what was my other favorite? Oh, favorite vet. I always thought it was a weird, what's your favorite veterinarian? Well, basically, it's probably somebody within 5 or 10 miles of you, right? So I look up vets near your home address, which I can look up, and I, maybe have 5 people I have to guess that to guess your favorite vet. Anyways, Google, because of the results of this paper, Google decided that they're no longer going to ask personal knowledge questions. Microsoft followed. I'm still asked them all the time. When I was on the plane the way over here, I was trying to get Wi-Fi in the airplane on American Airlines. It asked me to log on in, create an account, and ask me my personal knowledge questions, including my mother's maiden name. Happens all the time. Do not answer them real answers. It's not Jeopardy. When they ask you your mother's maiden name, Pizza 52, what's your favorite dog? Who's your favorite 3rd grade teacher and stuff? I make up nonsense answers. Unfortunately, you have to save them. You have to save the questions and the answers. I used to save them in a password-protected Word document. Now I save them in my password manager, which you should also be using. It's funny. The other day I got to a website that was asking me for my personal knowledge questions, and I hadn't written them down. I was like, oh, I can't remember, what nonsense. But then I looked at the answers, and it was like, what's your favorite dog, right? Or what's your favorite cat? And there was only, like, in the middle was this made up, like, ill ant, man, woman, 55. And I went, sounds like some garbage I would have made up. And that was mine. I just chose the answers that look like gibberish because I'm given gibberish. You should not put real answers into these password reset questions. It should be outlawed. Any website or place doing it should stop doing it. Push-based MFA. When I wrote multi-factor authentication a couple years ago, I was very excited about push-based authentication. This is where you get a code pushed to you going, hey, is this you logging on in, yes or no? And this is your physical location. This is the type of computer you're using, Windows versus Linux versus Apple. That's the browser you're using. I thought, man, this is really good, except for it turns out about 30% of human beings will say yes every time they're sent this prompt, even if they're not logging in. And it has been used to hack people. And my friends that still do penetration testing are just delighted because they said, hey, when we go to a company or an organization use push-based MFA, we know we're getting on in because someone's always waiting. It's like going up to an apartment building in New York City, hitting all the buttons. Somebody's waiting for somebody. But I was once on a big ransomware thing where the company had to pay $25 million, and the person that had approved all the unauthorized login prompts was the CFO, CIO. Was the head of the computer department, said to him, her, they had approved 80 prompts, even though the prompts said they were coming from Russia and Ukraine, and they were not working in Russia or Ukraine. But they said, hey, we just don't know, why did you approve 80 prompts that weren't you logging on in? And they said, you just told me, whenever I got this to say yes. And I got it. I'm like, that's probably exactly what happened. IT's trying to get them to move from passwords to MFA, and they're just trying to get them to know that, like, hey, when you get this code, say yes. Because they assume that person was bright enough to know to say no and report it to IT if it's not you. But it turns out 30% of the world doesn't know this. So if you're deploying these, or you have one yourself, just make a mental note to teach other people that, hey, if it's not you logging in, don't say yes. Don't say yes. Say no. Contact IT security. Report it. But lots of people don't. It's been used to take down Cisco and Uber and Facebook and Twitter. Just does. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll hit the person with a bunch of messages. Oh my God, and it's like 100 messages. They call it prompt bombing. It's 2 in the morning. They're tired. And they just like, I want it to stop. I'm going to try no. And they try no. And it does stop. That's so cool. Or they'll call and go, hey, sorry for sending you all these prompts. I'm with IT and we're trying to do this new app thing. And I just need you to say yes or it's going to bug you. Some of these things now, they'll put a code, like Microsoft and Google have a code on the screen, so you have to at least be looking at the screen, and it will say, what number is in front of you when you're logging in? Oh my God, that's such a great defense. I mean, that means the hacker actually goes, hey, you need to type in 265. It is so hard for the social engineering hacker to get around that. Oh my God, they just have to tell you what number for you to type in as you say yes. Happens all the time. There's Cisco, and and it's not like, it's not people being stupid. Not everybody knows everything. People don't understand stuff. I give a lot of presentations where people don't know what I mean by the word update or patch. We all assume everybody knows. Not everybody knows. So it just takes a little bit of education. Biometrics. I'm not a huge fan of single-factor biometrics. I even use them. Like to get into my phone, I use my face or my fingerprint. Oh, it's great. Do not think that they're great. they are not nearly as accurate as they're portrayed to be. Your fingerprint may be unique in the world. We don't even know that because we haven't captured and compared everybody's fingerprint in the entire world, but we think it's probably unique in the world. How it's captured, used, stored in your phone is far from unique. I've rarely been in a class when I've handed my phone for people to try their fingerprints that somebody's fingerprint in the class didn't unlock my phone. And that's just because the way that they're captured, stored, and used is not that accurate. But okay, my biggest problem with biometrics is your fingerprints in your face are not secrets. And they go, well, I'm using my retina, Roger. Well, that's great. Do we ever hear about password databases ever being captured? Do you ever hear about passwords being intercepted on somebody's laptop? Yeah, and the bad guys are just going to intercept your retina scan. And once it's done, what are you going to do? How are you going to change your retina? How are you going to change your face? Al Capone, I need to get my fingerprints done. And they're like, why do you need that? Not crime. I just need to log into my corporate laptop safely, you know. But biometrics are not great authenticators, especially by themselves, to protect valuable data and systems. Matter of fact, U.S. government and their NIST special publication 800-63-4, the latest version, says if you use MFA, if you use biometrics, you should use it with a physical-based USB token like a YubiKey. You know what that tells me? All the security is in the USB YubiKey. Like literally the US YubiKey by itself is secure enough. But if you use biometrics, you should also use the key. You're telling me that the biometrics are not secure at all. They're literally telling us to our face that what do I hear? Oh, I hear Visa and MasterCard. Oh, we use biometrics. I'm like, do you not pay attention to YouTube at all? Do you not even read the digital identity guidelines that I read? Y'all are the head of Visa, MasterCard. Read a little bit, please. But anyways, I digress. Biometrics are already being captured and reused in deep fakes to rob people blind all over the place. Not super popular. If you get compromised this year, it's probably not going to be because of a deep fake AI thing, but it is already being used to trick people left and right. Probably the most biggest case was this guy got called on an emergency Zoom call, got texted by his boss from his boss's phone number to his SMS message going, hey, we need to get on a Zoom call about this emergency transaction. I'm trying to close this merger deal here and I need you to transfer some money right away against company policy. Let's get on a Zoom call. Gets on the Zoom call, sees his boss and all of his coworkers on the team. Nobody was real. He was the only real person on that call. So they explained the emergency, how was to transfer all the money, and right when he was going to ask a question, because AI wasn't so good back then, it just acted like it had a service interruption. Zoom dropped. Boss said, hey, you saw what's going on, you see what we need to do, everybody's in agreement, need you to do any transfer the money. And I think there's a 10% chance he's in on it, he's just lying, but we don't know that. So far it just looks like he was duped on a fake Zoom call. Happens all the time. iProve researchers said there's 60 groups dedicated to creating synthetic images. Let me just say images. Worldwide, some of them with over 100,000 members. And again, I'm one of those members, but I go on websites. I use, my favorite is Hydra, and it will allow you to create fake audios, videos, voices, literally take you longer to sign up for the free account than it will to make a fake synthetic identity saying anything. I give a talk on deep fakes, and it's just scary to me how good the technology is out there today. But what the attackers do now is they steal your biometric attribute, whatever they need to do, your face, your retina, whatever it happens to be. Then they create a deep fake with deep fake AI software. They use a device emulator. When you connect to your bank or your stock account or whatever, it knows what type of computer you're coming from. So you're coming from Windows or Apple or Google or Android phone or whatever. They know that. They usually have sent you a fish. You clicked on the link. You're like, oh, it took me to this weird advertising. I don't care about that advertising. You get back out, but they've just captured all the traits of what your computer is. They create a device emulator that emulates everything about you, including your location. Then they use what's called virtual camera software to inject the deep fake, and then they use that deep fake to pretend to be you. This is the future. This is just what's going to be happening all the time. Another company said that they detect that face swap injection attacks have increased over 700% last year. There are now over 110 different face swap tools and repositories. Not all of the members are good. Turns out, not everybody's like me just doing research. Matter of fact, there's already malware. This is history. This is not the future. There's already malware that steals your face and then robs you blind. In Asia, in some countries in Asia, Cambodia, and South Korea and some others, if you want to transfer anything over $10,000, you have to do facial verification. So the malware breaks into the people's iPhones like it normally would, social engineer them to clicking something they shouldn't do, installs malware, steals their banking login name and password, and MFA if they need to steal that to log on to the bank. It steals their face while they're staring at their iPhone, and they don't realize. Then the malware makes a deep fake and then connects to their bank and robs them. Most of this, it's got manual and automated portions to it, but this is already happening. It's been used to steal millions and millions of dollars. And what do you think in the future? Is it going to be used more or less? It's going to be used more, right? We're just moving from passwords to something else that can be stolen. I have somebody like, oh, I'm using my face now. We've blocked them. All the bad guys are going to go home. No, they're just going to steal your face. And then, with I can change a password. I can change my digital certificate. I can't change my face. That's why I'm just not a huge fan, especially of single-factor authentication. But in fact, Gartner says that by 2026, pretty soon, year and a half or whatever from now, year and a month, 30% of enterprises will not trust single-factor biometrics. And my question is why would any of the rest? Right? What's up? Not keeping up with the reading? Not watching YouTube? Whatever. So key takeaways from here: MFA isn't unhackable. It does not stop you from being phished or socially engineered. MFA is good. You should use it when you can, but it isn't unbreakable. Try to buy. My biggest thing is try to buy and use phishing-resistant MFA whenever you can. Try to avoid any MFA solution that's been easily socially engineered or man-in-the-middle around if you can. But most of that stuff is just absolutely ridiculously easy to get by. And it's funny to hear Microsoft stops 99% of attacks. Well, that's because 99% of attacks ask you for your password. They're trying to steal your password, or at least the email ones. But they're just going to switch to asking you for your MFA. They already are, right? And literally, for me to ask you for your 6-digit MFA code is just as easy for me to ask you for your password. Literally means changing 2 words of text in the phishing email. It's just not that hard. But I try to tell people, no matter what type of MFA you use, especially if you're like an administrator, educate yourself and people that use it, about the common threats, like the man-in-the-middle. How do you stop man-in-the-middle attacks? Pay attention to the URLs, confirm it where you're going before you click on it. Because most people think, if you talk to most people that have MFA, they think that MFA protects them against phishing attacks. It does, kinda. It just doesn't protect them against phishing attacks that know that they have MFA. So, learn what the strengths and weaknesses are, the different types of MFA that you're using. If you're using push-based MFA, tell people, hey, if it's not you, don't say yes. I really think that would help 90% of the users. Then we have to worry with the last 10% that just doesn't seem to get it ever. That sort of stuff. Oh yeah, I've got some links there. I've got a lot. In the middle, I've got a list. People go, well, Rod, you say not to use phishing-resistant MFA. What's that? I have the only list on the internet. I've got a list of every MFA I've evaluated, 80 or 100 of them, and I've got a list of every MFA that is phishing-resistant. A big one that I like that a lot of people use today is FIDO, F-I-D-O. Anything that's FIDO-enabled or FIDO passkeys or something that's phishing-resistant. Can I hack it? Can I phish around it? Yes. But it stops man-in-the-middle attacks, so that's a good thing. I work for KnowBe4. We're very big believers in testing, that you train people, test them. If they fail the simulated phishing, they get more training. And we know that because the average customer comes to us, about 1/3 of their staff will click on any link, no matter what, and we get through training them. Usually they get it well below 5%, usually 1 or 2% or something like that. But now I'll take questions if anybody has any questions. If we don't get to your questions today, feel free to email me at rogerg@knowbe4.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I post every day, write about 2 articles a week.
Thanks for the very interesting talk. And do you have any questions? We have some questions from the Zoom.
They're on the table. There's a microphone.
Yes. Hello? Yeah. So thank you for the interesting talk. And do you have any questions in the audience here? We have some questions from the Zoom. Yeah. Please go ahead.
You mentioned about the.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, use your mic.
Use your microphone.
Use the mic. Yeah, there you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
You don't have to hold your hand up, just push it till it turns green. There you go.
Okay. You mentioned about the SIM swapping attacks. So I was wondering, nowadays a lot of phone companies offer like eSIMs instead of physical SIMs. So does that make it more susceptible to those attacks instead of physical SIMs?
No, I would say it has no, as far as I know, no bearing on the risk. It's the same. I can get it swapped. The main problem is that they allow the swapping, unauthenticated swapping, to be the major thing. Or they're swapping. Let me say the phone companies are getting a lot better. I went to Verizon Wireless a couple weeks ago to get a new phone. I almost couldn't get it put onto my new phone. Like, it took me like an hour or two, so they are certainly aware of these attacks. But again, most of the time they're just paying someone 50 or 75 bucks to do it in the store, paying 16 bucks on the internet, so they're not having to trick anybody that the person's doing it on their behalf. Almost always get caught, almost always get fired. I don't know why they do it, but that should be part of the training. You're going to get caught, you're going to be fired.
On a similar vein regarding the same topic, software companies like Apple, Samsung, Google, or whatever, they're switching now to RCS and other forms of messaging. Is that inherently more secure than SMS?
It is, but I'd say not. So that's a great question about real-time communication system or whatever. That does have many anti-phishing features in it. Significant amount of phishing still occurs across it, though, so certainly not the be-all, end-all. It puts down some stuff. The overall problem is that the protocol behind all of that, HH7, HL7, which has been known to be super hackable since the 90s, has not been updated. And it's my belief the reason why it's not updated is the governments around the world like it to be weak, so they can hack people's phones and do stingray scanning and stuff like that. There is no reason for why they have not upgraded our underlying phone protocols since the 1990s. None whatsoever. And a lot of congressmen will get hacked that way and like, oh my God, we got to do something. We're going to change the law. And like a month later, they just stop, like the CIA or FBI's called them or something, and they just don't ever bring up the law. There's something going on. I love law enforcement and everything, but I think they're keeping our phone system weak. So you have these higher protocols that are riding on lower level, more controlling protocols that are easy to fake.
Yeah, so in light of all of this, how do you keep your accounts secure?
In some cases, so great. How do I keep my accounts? You ready for this? For my most high value accounts, I oftentimes use a long, complex password. You should be using MFA, phishing resistant MFA, to protect yourself. And you can't, you should be using a password manager. If you're not using a password manager, you are putting yourself at far higher risk of being attacked, because that means you're reusing passwords or password manager or password patterns across multiple websites. If you are not using a password manager, you're putting yourself and your loved ones at higher risk of being attacked. So in some cases, I know that I cannot be phished out of my password. I know I can't. Password managers, if you use the right ones, won't even work with the phishing emails and things like that. It just doesn't work. But I'm pretty good at not being phished. And if I was, it's not going to work. And then my problem is, a lot of times what they protect it with is with very phishable MFA. And like with this SIM swap attack, they can get it from me without me being involved. I at least want to be involved in what's going to possibly hack me. So I actually use long, strong passwords out of password managers. If you're going to make a password out of your head, it needs to be 20 characters or longer. I have friends that hack 18-character passwords for a living all day long, and they are not nation states.
We have a, do you have any questions? Yeah, sure, please go.
So we got to know that MFA is hackable and then biometrics is not really safe. So in that case, do we think like the physical USB tokens are probably the safest way of?
I think that physically, I'm a huge fan of YubiKeys, but FIDO enabled. When you buy a YubiKey, it may or may not be FIDO enabled. I think the latest ones are FIDO enabled by default. The FIDO gives you protection against man-in-the-middle attacks. If you get a man-in-the-middle attack, when you connect to the FIDO server, it actually sends the link telling you where you need to connect to. So if they connected you to the wrong link, your FIDO client will automatically connect to the real link. It's encrypted and signed, so the hacker can't see what the real link is and can't see the signed stuff to change it. So but FIDO passkeys are good. There's a lot of them are good. I even like biometrics if it's two-factor. I don't like single-factor. And let me say, I use it on my phone all the time because am I trying to stop James Bond from breaking into this phone? No. I'm trying to really, when I use my fingerprint here, besides it being ease of use, I'm trying to stop if I leave my cell phone in an Uber at a party, the next person picks it up doesn't immediately get access to my phone. Most of the time, a hacker just wants to wipe it and then sell it in Mexico or something like that. So I'm not trying to stop the Uber guy. The Uber are like a super thief. A super thief's going to be able to break into it fairly easily. Notice the FBI no longer gets court warrants to Apple to try to break into Apple phones. Have you noticed that? They don't do that anymore. They just go to the dozens of companies that break into Apple phones for a living. They're all breakable. You can break into them all. You're like, how do you do it? Oh my God, how do they do it? Because they're often unpatched, or they just wait till they're unpatched. Like, I have your phone, it's fully patched. Oh my God, I can't break into it. I just wait for the latest Apple patch, and I look to see what the sys difference is, and I break into your phone. Not that I've ever found a fully patched device in my entire life of 36 years, including all the ones that tell you that they're fully patched. They're not. They're lying to you.
We have another question from the chat. Louis Stan asked, how can you prevent hidden browser sessions from being spawned, or malicious cross-site scripting or other kinds of malicious code that executed through your browser?
If you're fully patched on your system, it's very hard to infect you without you knowing about it. There are sometimes they have to get a 0-day that's something that's not known. If you're fully patched, you're far less likely to be silently exploited. If I can teach you anything about avoiding pay attention here. This is how not to be socially engineered. Is that anytime you get a message, no matter how it arrives, whether it's through a phone call, in person, social media, whatever, mail, if the message is unexpected and asking you to do something you've never done before, don't do it right away. And it sounds funny, but 99% of phishing messages arrive unexpectedly. You weren't expecting it. They're asking you to do something weird. And your head goes, huh? Well, huh? As soon as you do that, train yourself to go, oh, could be this is higher risk of being, and it could be, my boss sends me stuff I don't expect all the time, telling me to do stuff, but I research it before I do it, right? I call my boss or I email them a known good phone number. 40% of phishing emails come from a compromised account. So it's coming from the person you think it is. They and you don't know that their account is compromised. So just if you're asked to do something strange, use another way you can't trust email, you can't trust your phone numbers and SMS messaging. Well, thanks for putting up with me. Y'all have been a great crowd. Send me any more. If you had any more questions, send me to rogerg@nobel4.com.
Yeah, we have one more question.
Do we have time?
Yeah, I think we have
Okay.
like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen the hook yet, but
Yeah, so Louis Chan, who asked the previous question in the chat, also asked, wouldn't your made-up gibberish for recovery questions stands out if options are given to an adversary or an hacker?
oh my God, that's a great question, and that may have found a security vulnerability in my plan. That's a great question. So I would say I've never heard of anybody using that's a great question. And you may have me do different. So then I would put in a fake answer. What's your mother's maiden name? Palladium. I don't know. Orange. Maria. Make up a fake answer that sounds plausible. That's a great idea. That's a great idea that possibly I've done myself in with my fake answers. Oh my God. Please, y'all don't go hack all my accounts. Now, oftentimes I just put in, I literally just put in bad answers. Like I know my dad's middle name, but it's not the middle name I put in there. One was, what's your high school mascot? It's easy to look up, to where I went to high school and stuff like that. Like a lot of these, I'm like, did they not anticipate genealogy websites or Google or something when they put these things out there? Like they're just so easy.
All right. Thank you, Roger. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.